I'm going to come to our colleague, Peter Cardwell, and then I'll talk to Sam Armstrong, who's poised, desperate to speak on this. But our talk presenter, of course, political commentator Peter Cardwell joins us on the line now as well. Good afternoon to you, Peter.
Hi, Julia.
Thanks.
What a day.
What a day indeed. Look, as soon as we had this press conference, we thought, look, realistically, it's going to be his resignation. I thought the most telling thing was, I'm not willing to trade my values and principles to do a deal with whoever to stay in power. He means Alex Salmond, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. It's quite funny, actually, because Alex Salmond's party has been the tail that's been wagging the dog throughout this process of the last few days, with Alex Salmond very happily holding the lead. I thought it was very good of him, Julia, just to make himself available for just so many of those media interviews when Humza Yousaf was having such a terrible time.
He's a good man.
Well, the question is what happens next and what the Greens do. Who's the next leader of the SNP? There's a definite move for it to be some sort of coronation for John Swinney, who's the Deputy First Minister. They want a coronation, but Kate Forbes, who came so close to to beating Humza Yousaf the last year when Nicola Sturgeon stood down, I'm sure she'll have a few things to say about that.
Well, indeed. I mean, the thing is, he was saying, it was fascinating. He said, I bear no ill will, no grudges against anyone. He talked about the mental and physical toll it's taken on him. He's only been in the job for a short while. I'm not quite sure why that is the case. But I thought what was really telling was when he was talking about, he's not the man to repair these relationships across the political divide, and that's why he's standing down. But then he talked about how, as a young lad, people who looked like him, he said, when I was younger, didn't have jobs like they didn't become First Minister of Scotland. But he also said, when people talk about how multiculturalism has failed, of course, no, people of different religions and different ethnicities, that's not multiculturalism, that's multi-ethnicity or multi-religion. Those are different things. But also he said far too often hatred continues. He talked about the toxic culture wars and how it's the most marginalised who bear the brunt, and we must resist populism. That was clearly a dig at those who were saying that, the battles over the trans wars, the hate crimes. I mean, this bizarre view that Humza Yousaf has of the Scottish, wonderful, wonderful people who apparently need to be told not to be hateful every day and have a law preventing them being hateful even in their own homes around the dinner table with their own kids. I mean, it's quite a bizarre thing to talk about.
Well, it just shows the mental and political space that he occupies and how that's been such a complete failure over the past year. I mean, the SNP has not really had a good week in the last year, and even beforehand with Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Morell and all of what had happened around that. So there is so much.
But it's a police investigation. We're quite limited because of Scottish laws and what we can say. But, at the centre of police investigations and arrests, I mean,
it's not good politically.
Not good. It's not a good look.
No, and he has not had a good time politically. Everything, or almost everything, he has tried to do has been there's been huge opposition to it, and clearly we have this situation now where he's lost his coalition partner, which really that is the biggest political problem you can have. And we have this bizarre situation again. His two rivals, Kate Forbes, possibly coming to the fore, possibly running. It's interesting. Nominations last year were about 2 weeks. They needed 100 nominations for members. That was the first time in a while, anyway, that had been contended, because in 2014 Sturgeon was elected unopposed to follow Alex Salmond back in the day. But you have these votes of confidence that it was probably him personally. There was one on him personally, one on his government. Neither of those were going to go particularly well for him. And you had Alapa, which had Ash Regan, who is sort of dastardly rival, who had then defected. It's a very, very interesting perspective. Stephen Flynn, you mentioned earlier, it's actually, there's legislation a few years ago to say that you can't actually be a member of two legislatures in these islands. So if he were to become an MSP, he'd need to stand down as an MP, become an MSP, and then there'd need to be a by-election in his constituency seat. And that would be a very, very tricky thing for the SNP in the current circumstances. Most recently, Labour overtaking the SNP in the polls in Scotland for the first time since the independence referendum.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for that. I really appreciate all that information there. Peter Cardwell, who's, of course, a talk presenter.